Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Moonvale. Here we listen Reddit stories while playing Minecraft. So let's start today's story, which is She Knows My Secret. I'm sitting across from her at our favorite booth in that hole-in-the-wall diner on 4th Street, the one with the peeling vinyl seats and the smell of burnt coffee. And I can't stop looking at the way she's stirring her tea round and round, the spoon clicking against the porcelain like a countdown. She hasn't looked up at me in 10 minutes, but she just dropped a sentence that made the air in my lungs turn to concrete. She mentioned the blue scarf, the one the police said was missing from the scene 2 years ago, the one I swore I'd never seen. I haven't said a word. I'm just watching the steam rise from my burger, wondering if the handcuffs will feel cold or if the heat of the shame will be enough to melt them. She knows, she's known the whole time. And the only reason I'm not in cell right now is because she's been waiting for the perfect moment to tell me exactly what my freedom is going to cost. The rain is drumming against the window of the diner, a steady, relentless rhythm that feels like fingers tapping on a coffin lid. I remember that sound. It's the same sound that was filling the cabin of my car that night, 2 years ago, on that stretch of Highway 9 where the streetlights don't reach. I was tired. I was frustrated. I just lost the biggest account of my career, and I was staring down the barrel of a foreclosure. I wasn't looking for trouble. I was just looking for a way home. And then there was a thud, a soft, sickening sound like a bag of wet mulch hitting the pavement. I didn't see him until it was too late, a kid, maybe 19, on a bike with no reflectors. I stopped the car. I stood over him in the rain, the world spinning in shades of red and gray. And I realized that if I called it in, my life was over. No more house, no more career, no more her. I made a choice that has been eating me from the inside out like acid. I dragged him to the tall grass. I took the blue scarf that had caught on my side mirror, and I drove away. I thought I'd cleaned the car. I thought I'd buried the scarf in the woods behind our garage. I thought I'd played the part of the grieving, shocked neighbor perfectly when the news broke. The tea is getting cold, she says, finally looking up. Her eyes are clear, terrifyingly calm. You always did hate cold things, didn't you? Like the lake in November, or the way the house felt the week you lost your car to that supposed carjacker. I feel the sweat trickling down my spine. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't, she whispers, the word cutting through the noise of the diner like a razor. I found it 3 months ago. I was looking for the Christmas lights in the crawl space, and I found the metal box, the one with the scarf and the broken piece of a bike reflector. You really should have used a deeper hole. I look at her, and I see the woman I've loved for 7 years, the woman I thought I was protecting, but she doesn't look like my partner anymore. She looks like a judge. Why didn't you say anything? I ask, my voice coming out as a dry, pathetic rasp, because I wanted to see how long you could live with it. She says, leaning forward, her face inches from mine. I wanted to see if you'd ever tell me. I wanted to see if the man I married was still in there, or if he'd been replaced by the monster who let a mother bury an empty casket because they couldn't find her son's body for 3 days. I did it for us. I say, the oldest, most pathetic lie in the book. I didn't want to lose you. You lost me the second you put the car in gear and drove away. She says, but you're right about one thing. You didn't lose the house, and you didn't lose the career. In fact, you've been doing quite well lately, haven't you? She reaches into her purse and pulls out a folded piece of paper. She slides it across the table, right next to my plate. I'm not calling the police, she says, her voice flat. At least not yet. I've been doing some thinking about the mortgage, about the debt, and about the fact that you're about to get that big year-end bonus. I look at the paper. It isn't a confession. It's a list of bank account numbers, offshore accounts. What is this? This is the price of my silence, she says, a small, cold smile touching her lips. I'm leaving you, but I'm not leaving empty-handed. I want the bonus. I want the house, and I want you to sign over the life insurance policy you took out on yourself last year. I stare at her, the realization hitting me harder than the car hit that kid. She isn't disgusted by what I did. She's inspired by it. And if I don't, she reaches into her purse again, and this time, she pulls out her phone. The screen lit up with a pre-typed text to the local tip line. Her finger hovering over the send button. Then we both find out how well you handle the silence of a prison cell. I look at her, and I realize that the psychological cliffhanger isn't whether she'll turn me in. It's that I'm starting to wonder if she was the one who moved the box to the crawl space in the first place, just to see if I'd notice. I'm looking at the woman I thought I knew, and all I see is a predator who's been living in my house, eating at my table, and sleeping in my bed while she waited for my soul to ripen enough to harvest. The diner is getting louder. The lunch rush is starting, and the sound of people laughing over their bacon and eggs feels like a mockery of the life I'm losing. She's still holding the phone, her thumb hovering over the screen, and I realize that the man I was before I hit that kid, the man who thought he was a good person, he's not just dead. He was an illusion. I am a murderer, and she is the person who's going to make sure I never forget it, as long as I'm useful to her. I can feel the blood rushing in my ears, a dull, heavy thrumming that makes her voice sound like it's coming from the bottom of a well. She reaches out and slides the paper closer to me, tapping the account numbers with a fingernail that's painted a soft, innocent pink. "You look like you're going to be sick," she says, and there isn't a drop of sympathy in her voice. "But we don't have time for a breakdown. We have to get the paperwork started. I want the house in my name by Friday. And I want you to tell your boss you need that bonus in a lump sum. No installments." "How long?" I whisper, my hands clenched under the table, so hard my knuckles are turning white. "How long have you been sitting on this?" "Since the second month," she says. She takes a sip of her tea, perfectly poised. "I noticed the way you were looking at the news. I noticed the way you couldn't look at the garage. You're a lot of things, but a good liar isn't one of them. I followed you one night when you thought you were going to the gym. I watched you dig. I watched you check the box. And then I waited until you went to work the next day, and I checked it myself. I feel a cold, hollow pit opening up in my stomach. For over a year, she's known. She watched me struggle to sleep. She watched me have panic attacks in the middle of the night. She held me while I cried. And the whole time, she was just calculating the interest on my guilt. "You're a monster," I say, and the words feel small in the air between us. "No," she says, her eyes narrowing. "I'm a woman who's tired of living in a house that smells like damp wood and failure. I'm a woman who's tired of wondering if we're going to be able to pay the property taxes because you're too busy being traumatized to focus on your work. You made a choice that night, and I'm making one now. I'm choosing a life that doesn't involve being the wife of a man who's going to end up in a 6x9 cell for the next 20 years. She slides the phone back into her purse, but she doesn't turn it off. I can see the glow through the leather, a tiny digital heartbeat that could stop mine at any second. "I don't have that much money," I say, my voice shaking. "The bonus, it's not enough to pay off the house, even with the accounts." "Then you'll find it," she says. "You're an accountant. You know where the money is. You've seen the way the firm handles the vendor contracts. A few rounding errors here, a ghost invoice there. You did it for yourself that night. Now you're going to do it for me." I stare at her, my heart hammering against my ribs. She's not just asking for a payout. She's asking me to become a professional criminal. She's tying me to her in a way that I can never escape. If I steal from the firm, I'm double locked. I can't go to the police about her blackmail without confessing to the hit and run, and I can't go to the firm without confessing to the theft. "You want me to embezzle? I want you to provide for me." She corrects, her voice sweet as honey. "It's what a good husband does, isn't it?" She stands up, smoothing her coat. She looks like $1 million. She looks like she doesn't have a secret in the world. I stay in the booth, feeling like I'm anchored to the seat by the weight of the air. "I'll see you at home for dinner," she says, leaning down to kiss my cheek. Her lips are cold. "Make it something nice. We have a lot to celebrate." I watch her walk out of the diner, the bell over the door ringing with a cheerful, mocking sound. I sit there for a long time, watching the rain. I think about the kid on the bike. I think about the blue scarf. And I think about the way his mother looked on the evening news, pleading for information. And then I remember something. I remember the night I buried the box. It was raining then, too, a heavy, blinding downpour. I remember the way the dirt felt, the way the shovel hit a rock. I remember everything about that night, because it was the worst night of my life. But I also remember the scarf. I didn't just bury it. I cut a piece of it off, a tiny square scrap that I'd hidden in the lining of my old work boots. A piece of the guilt that I couldn't let go of. I stand up, my mind racing. If she found the box, she found the scarf, but she didn't know about the scrap. And if she followed me that night, if she saw me dig, then she was there. I walk out of the diner, the cold rain soaking through my shirt instantly. I'm not going back to the office. I'm going back to the garage. I'm going back to the place where I buried the truth. I drive home like a man possessed, the car hydroplaning on the turns. I pull into the driveway, the house looking dark and silent in the gray light. She's not home yet. She's probably at the bank or shopping for the new life she's building on my back. I grab a shovel from the garden shed and go to the back of the garage, under the big oak tree. I start to dig, the mud flying everywhere. I hit the box in less than 5 minutes. I pull it up, the metal rusted and slick. I flip the latch. The box is empty. No scarf, no reflector, nothing. Just a few dead leaves and a layer of silt. I feel a cold, prickling sensation at the base of my neck. If she has the scarf, she took it months ago, but if the box is empty, what was she showing me? She hadn't actually shown me the scarf in the diner. She'd just mentioned it. I stand up, the shovel falling from my hands. I look toward the house, and I see the light in our bedroom window flicker on. She's standing there, looking down at me, her face obscured by the rain and the glass. But I know she's smiling. I realize then that she didn't just find my secret. She's been perfecting it. The psychological cliffhanger isn't that she's blackmailing me. It's that I'm starting to wonder if the kid on the bike was really a stranger, or if she was the one who told him to be on that road at that time. Knowing I was coming home, my phone vibrates in my pocket. A message from her. Check the floorboards in the shed. I left you a surprise. I walk toward the shed, my legs moving like I'm in a dream. I pull up the loose board in the corner, and I see it. It's not the blue scarf. It's a set of keys and a photo of her and the kid from the bike, both of them smiling at the camera, and they're standing in front of our house 3 years ago. The paper in my hand is damp, the edges curling as the rain seeps into the fibers. But the image is clear enough to burn itself into my retinas. It's her, younger, smiling with a radiance I haven't seen in years. And her arm is looped through the kid, the one I left in the grass. They're standing in front of our porch, the same chipped paint, the same hanging fern, a year before we even got married. My heart isn't just racing anymore. It's trying to break out of my ribs. I've spent 2 years drowning in a lake of my own guilt, and she's been sitting on the shore, holding a life vest and waiting for the tide to turn. The paper in my hand is damp, the edges curling as the rain seeps into the fibers. But the image is clear enough to burn itself into my retinas. It's her, younger, smiling with a radiance I haven't seen in years, and her arm is looped through the kid, the one I left in the grass. They're standing in front of our porch, the same chipped paint, the same hanging fern, a year before we even got married. My heart isn't just racing anymore. It's trying to break out of my ribs. I've spent 2 years drowning in a lake of my own guilt, and she's been sitting on the shore, holding a life vest and waiting for the tide to turn. Part 3, the dead man's dividend. I don't go into the house through the front door. I go through the garage, the place where I've spent 1,000 nights staring at the bumper of my car, wondering if the ghost of that boy was still clinging to the metal. I'm vibrating, a low-frequency hum of pure, unadulterated rage. I keep the photo clutched in my left hand and the shovel in my right. I look like a madman, a suburban gardener who finally snapped. And maybe I am. The kitchen is quiet. The only sound is the hum of the refrigerator and the distant, muffled sound of a news broadcast from upstairs. I walk through the hallway, my boots leaving smears of gray mud on the hardwood floors she loves so much. I don't care. I want her to see the mess. I want her to see exactly what kind of filth she's been sleeping next to. I find her in our bedroom. She's sitting on the edge of the bed, her back to me. She's changed into a silk robe, soft, elegant, the kind of thing a woman wears when she's won. She doesn't turn around when I enter. She just looks at the reflection of the rain on the window. The shed was always the weakest part of the property. She says, her voice steady. Termites, rot, and secrets. It's a miracle it hasn't collapsed yet. Who was he? I ask, my voice coming out as a growl. I drop the shovel, the heavy iron clattering against the floor. In the photo, who was he to you? She finally turns. She looks at the photo in my hand. And then she looks at me. There's no fear in her eyes, no regret, only a cold, clinical curiosity, as if she's watching a bug try to crawl out of a jar. He was my brother. She says, the words hitting me like a physical blow. Half-brother, really? My mother's mistake. The one she sent to me when she couldn't afford the drugs anymore. He was a parasite, a loud, angry, 19-year-old anchor around my neck. He was stealing from me. He was threatening to tell you about the money I'd taken from our joint account to pay off his debts. I feel the room start to spin. The boy wasn't a stranger. He was family. Her family. You knew he was on that road. I whisper. I didn't tell him to go out there. She says, standing up. She walks toward me, the silk of her robe whispering against the floor. But I knew he was going to the liquor store, and I knew you were coming home late. Angry, tired. I didn't cause the accident, but I didn't stop it. And when I saw your car pull into the driveway, when I saw the look on your face, I realized that you had finally given me exactly what I needed. Leverage, I say. Security. She corrects. She reaches out to touch my face, her fingers cold. You were always so independent, so focused on your career, your good guy image. I knew that eventually you'd leave me, but a man with a body in his past, a man with a blue scarf in his crawl space, that's a man who stays. That's a man who works hard to make sure his wife is happy, because her happiness is the only thing keeping him out of cage. I pull away from her touch, the revulsion making my skin crawl. You let your own brother rot in a ditch for 3 days so you could keep me on a leash? I'll let a problem solve itself. She says, and now, you're going to solve the rest of my problems? The embezzlement, the transfer, we're going to do it together. We're going to build a life where we never have to worry about people like him ever again. I look at the photo again. The boy smile. He had no idea he was just a pawn in her long game. I think about the mother, the one on the news, her own mother, crying for a son that her daughter had used as currency. I'm going to the police. I say. She laughs. A short, sharp sound that echoes in the room. With what? The photo? That just proves I knew him. It doesn't prove I killed him. You're the one who hit him. You're the one who fled. You're the one who buried the evidence. If you go to the cops, you go to jail, and I go to the bank. I'll tell them I was too afraid to speak up, that you threatened me. I'll be the tragic widow, and you'll be the monster. She's right. She's planned every angle, every move. I'm trapped in a cage she started building the day we met. But she forgot one thing. I'm an accountant. I don't just move numbers. I find the gaps in the system. I find the places where the data doesn't add up. You're right. I say, my voice suddenly calm, the rage hardening into something cold and functional. I can't go to the police, not for the accident. I walk over to the laptop on the desk, the one I use for work. I open the encrypted folder, the one she thinks is the sustainability initiative, but it's not. It's the record of every penny she's taken from our accounts over the last 3 years. The debt she paid for her brother, the jewelry she bought, the cash withdrawals. What are you doing? She asks, her smile faltering. I'm looking at the life insurance policy. I say, the one you wanted me to sign over. Did you know that most policies have a clause for criminal activity? If I'm convicted of a felony, you don't get a dime. So, I still have the house. No, you don't. I say, my fingers flying over the keys. I just finished the transfer. The house isn't in my name, and it's not in yours. I just sold the equity to a private holding company, the one I set up last year for the firm. The money is already moving, but it's not going to the offshore accounts you gave me. Her face goes pale. Where is it going? To the victim's fund. I say, specifically, to the trust set up for your mother. It's an anonymous donation, a settlement from an undisclosed party. By the time you try to stop it, the money will be tied up in probate for a decade. She lunges for the laptop, but I close it and hold it out of her reach. And as for the leverage, I say, I didn't just keep a piece of the scarf. I kept the dashcam footage. The carjacking was a lie. I drove the car into the lake, but I pulled the SD card first. It's been in a safety deposit box for 18 months, with a letter addressed to the DA to be opened in the event of my death or a confession by my spouse. I'm lying. I burned the SD card the night of the accident, but she doesn't know that. She spent 3 years assuming I'm a coward. She doesn't realize that a coward who's lost everything is the most dangerous person in the room. You're bluffing. She whispers, but I can see the doubt in her eyes, the cracks in the porcelain. Maybe, I say, but do you want to bet your life on it? Because here's the deal. I'm leaving. I'm taking the car, and I'm going to disappear. You get the house, but you'll have to fight the holding company for it. You get the secrets, but the second you use them, the letter in the vault gets opened. We stay in this stalemate forever. You get your security, but it's going to be the loneliest security you've ever known. I walk toward the door, my heart finally slowing down. I feel a strange, hollow sense of victory. I'm still a killer. I'm still a thief, but for the first time in 2 years, I'm the one holding the leash. You'll never survive without me, she shouts, her voice cracking, losing that cool, clinical edge. You're a wreck. You can't even sleep without the lights on. I'll learn, I say. I walk down the stairs, out the front door, and into the rain. I don't take anything but the keys to the car. I drive away from the house, away from the woman, and away from the life I killed for. I'm driving down Highway 9, the same road, the same darkness. I look in the rearview mirror, and for the first time, I don't see the kid on the bike. I don't see the blue scarf. I just see the road. Empty and stretching out into a future where I have nothing left to lose. I pull over at a rest stop 100 miles away. I sit in the dark, listening to the engine cool. I reach into my pocket and pull out the scrap of the blue scarf I kept in my boot, the tiny, ragged square of guilt. I roll down the window and let the wind take it. I'm not a good man. I'm a man who just traded his soul for a head start. But as the sun begins to peek over the horizon, I realize the mystery isn't how I'm going to live with myself. It's that I finally realized she was never the one I was afraid of. I was afraid of becoming her. And now, looking at the empty passenger seat, I realize that I finally have. I'm driving into a sunrise that doesn't feel like a beginning. It feels like a witness. I left behind a woman who turned a tragedy into a business plan. And I did it by becoming the very thing she wanted me to be. A man who can move millions with a keystroke and walk away from a wreck without a scratch. The blue scarf is gone, scattered to the wind, but the coldness in my chest is here to stay. I used to wonder if I'd ever find peace. Now, as the miles click by and the life I knew fades into a blur in the rearview mirror, I realize that peace was never the goal. Survival was. I'm not the man who hit that kid on Highway 9 anymore, and I'm certainly not the man who married Ghost. I'm just a guy with a head start and a heart that finally stopped feeling the weight. The road is open, the tank is full, and for the first time in 2 years, the only person watching me is the man in the mirror. And God help me, I think he's starting to enjoy the view. Comment below. Who do you think was the true villain of this story? Was it the man who fled the scene, or the woman who paved the road for him? Like and share. If you felt the tension of that final standoff, hit the like button and share this story with someone who loves a good psychological twist. Subscribe. Don't miss out on our next deep dive into the secrets people keep. Subscribe now to join a community that explores the darker side of the human heart.